Okay. Good morning, team. Looks like we are live. How are you? Just gonna find. Oops, sorry.
Already hit 5 to 10K.
Sorry. Accidentally clicked on a Facebook ad instead of going into my group. Here we go. All right. Just tag everyone so that you can find me here. Okay. Beautiful. Fabulous. Okay, if you're joining me live, welcome. If you're watching on replay, be sure to tag us #afterparty. Let me know that you've joined. Okay, so let me find my notes here. Today we're going to be talking about what to eat for easier fat loss without going hungry, tracking, or portion control. By the way, if we haven't met before, if you're new to this group, I'm Karen, I'm the Plant Power Coach, and I'm the creator of the Transform with Plants coaching program. I help people lose weight on a plant-based diet. We build the healthy habits that support fat loss. We break the sabotaging habits that get in the way of our success, and then we become the person who can sustain the resultful life. And today I want to bring it right back to one of the core foundations of fat loss, and that is what to eat. Not in a restrictive way. So we're not looking at restrictive fat loss, we're not looking at white knuckling. We want this to be easier. We are programmed to do things that feel easy. Okay, so we want to make this easier for ourselves so that we can create sustainability, so that we can create consistency and enjoy that result that we're creating for life. So what we'll cover today is why portion control fails most people, how calorie density determines whether fat loss feels easy or it feels hard, how fiber and food volume will switch off those hunger cues and cravings and urges and food noise, and how to build meals that naturally support your fat loss without needing to think about it. So this masterclass is intended to build on my last fat loss masterclass, where I explained that fat loss always requires one thing, and that one thing is a calorie deficit. So let me share my screen with you here a moment. Here we go. I've got some slides here I'm going to show you. I hope you can see that well. Can everybody see that? Just give me a thumbs up. Lynn, you're watching if you can see that. Beautiful. So this is a calorie surplus. Let's just briefly explain what's going on here. We have an energy in side of the pie. Energy in is calories that we get from food. Calories are just a unit of energy. And we over here have our energy out side of the pie. Our energy out is made up of a number of different functions within our body. Our base metabolic rate, which is around about 60%, and non-exercise activity thermogenesis, so this is non-exercise activity, that's around about 25%. Our thermic effect of food, or the energy that is required to digest our food. And then the last 5% is our active exercise. So here we're showing a calorie surplus. In order for you to put on weight, one thing must be present, and that is excess calories. More calories going into your body consistently over time than your body is using consistently over time. That energy cannot just disappear. Energy can neither be created nor destroyed. And that's what I covered in that last video, that last fat loss masterclass. So that energy must go somewhere. And the beautiful thing is that we have these little fat storage cells on our body that is designed to store that excess energy. And this is a really good thing. We want to think about this in a healthy way, because this it protects us in those times where we don't have access to food. Now, human history, in previous, I guess, generations, many generations ago, our ancestors did have that worry. There wasn't abundant food everywhere. In certain parts of the world right now, there are places where they cannot get enough calories into their body. We are lucky in this part of the world. We have more calories being produced than we actually need. In fact, about twice as many now. This has been the case since about the 70s or 80s, I believe. And it actually corresponds very closely with the increase in weight in general. And so that excess energy that is going into our body then gets stored on our body in the form of body fat, so that our body has like a savings account for us to be able to dip into in the future. So if we want to reduce that excess energy on our body, we must make the opposite true, which is we need to create a calorie deficit. Are you with me so far? So the deficit looks like this. We've got our energy coming in that looks like slightly less than the energy going out, but this must be consistent over time, consistently for a long period of time for some of you. And then the body then must dip into that excess stored energy on your body in order to top it up. Okay. Now, this requirement of being in a calorie deficit in order to lose weight is true regardless of the diet that you follow. It doesn't matter what diet it is, whether it is plant-based, whether it is keto, whether it is Mediterranean, whether it is carnivore, whether you're doing a Whole30 or the Zone diet or Weight Watchers, it does not matter. Fat loss occurs when your body consistently takes in less energy than it is using over time. That's the only mechanism. This is what Kevin Hall proved in his metabolic ward studies, and I talk about that in the Fat Loss Masterclass, where he put different diets up against each other in a very calorie-controlled environment, and where calories were controlled, the very same outcome, the very same fat loss was achieved, okay? So we need to create this calorie deficit. That's what we're aiming for. Here's where most people get stuck though. Most people try to create that calorie deficit by eating less food, whether that's smaller portions, less volume. And those smaller portions, less volume of food, salads, lots of light salads, this is where fat loss starts to become difficult for us. Because here is where our body actually starts to fight back. It starts to go, no, this is not normal, and makes you want to eat more. So today I'm going to show you how you can create that calorie deficit in a way that your body will enjoy, in a way that allows you to still be eating generous portions of satisfying food and make this a sustainable journey for you. Okay, so I think I've got another slide here. All right, we'll flip over to this one now. Okay, so I want to talk about volumetrics. This is the volume principle, volumetrics. There's a great book here. I don't know if you can see that. Volumetrics. I should have taken a copy and put it on the slide. Sorry. It says Volumetrics Weight Control Plan. It's by Dr. Barbara Rolls. And this is where the principle of calorie density was discovered. So research shows that human beings tend to eat roughly the same weight of food every single day. And it is somewhere between 3 to 6 pounds of food. And that depends on who you are, what you're used to eating, how tall you are, or how big you are, how athletic you are, your age. So we don't necessarily eat the same amount of calories every day. We eat the same weight or volume of food that creates this stretch in the stomach. And you'll see here, I've got 3 bellies full of food, and they're made up of all different types of food. Now, our stomach has what is known as stretch receptors. This is a gorgeous little picture here that AI made for me. AI is so clever with its pictures these days. Our bodies don't necessarily count calories, not as we're eating anyway. Our body measures stretch. So our body doesn't know, oh, you've eaten 500 calories, let's stop eating. No, it's going to measure the stretch in your stomach. And when when you are eating enough volume and weight of food, these stretch receptors are activated. Whoop, whoop, whoop. What they do then is they trigger the satiety hormones like GLP-1, I think it's called peptide YY, leptin. These are our fullness hormones, satiety hormones. And these hormones then send signals up to your brain to say, hey, stop, we've got enough. There's enough food down here, can't fit anything more, do not send any more down. And this is when those hunger cues are switched off and satiety, is obviously switched on. And it's at this point that food noise quietens down, cravings will actually reduce, urges to eat will go away. And so what we want to do is we want to be smart about how we're activating those stretch receptors. But the mistake that most people are making, as I said, is portion control. I hear this word so often, portion control. If you eat small volumes or small portions of food, then those stretch receptors are never fully going to activate. And especially if you're eating small portions of very calorie-dense food. In here you'll see lots of very calorie-dense foods. You've got some processed foods, you've got some cheese, you've got some cakes. I think that's even bacon in there. Thanks AI. But if you for some people, they're taught that they just need to keep eating what they're eating because they want to keep their brain nice and happy. But they then have to significantly reduce the portion sizes in order to be able to get into that calorie deficit zone. And so if you are eating these small portions and you're never feeling that stretch in your belly, your stretch receptors are never really activated. You're not activating that GLP-1, the peptide YY, the leptin, and your brain is never really going to get that we are done signal. Even if you have consumed a lot of calories, even if you consumed enough calories, even if you over-consumed calories. And so this is why portion control, eating small portions or lowering your portions just without considering hunger cues, that's why that can fail long term. Because your body will actually push you back. It will go, we have not had enough. It will keep sending you hunger signals. It will keep sending you cravings, going, go back and get more food. We are not done yet. And that's how you inadvertently overeat. So satiation is actually the key. We want to feel comfortably satiated. Now that's different to overstuffing your body, okay? That's different to overeating. I'm going to be doing a separate masterclass on overeating. But satiation is the key. So instead of eating less volume of food, we want to change the quality or the calorie density of the food that we are actually eating. We want to keep the volume high and lower the calories. Okay, we can still eat that same volume of food, activate those satiety hormones and stretch receptors, but keep those calories in a low fat loss zone, meaning that we can feel full and satisfied and still be able to lose weight. We don't need to go hungry. I'm sure many of you have probably seen a version of this calorie density chart in the past. And this represents, this calorie density or 500 calorie chart shows you what 500 calories of certain types of foods might look like in the stomach. So calorie density means simply the calories in a given weight of food, either represented by 1 pound of food or oftentimes by, I think it's 100 grams of food. So I'm going to use the 1 pound version because that's what most people talk about. Even though we don't really talk pounds over here in the US, most people still refer to calorie density in terms of pounds. So this represents what 500 calories of these certain types of foods that appear at different stages of the calorie density scale, how much volume they might take up of your stomach. And you can see oil here. Oil is the most calorie dense food on the planet, and a little bit delivers a big calorie bomb. Okay, so 500 calories of oil is not going to fill you up. at all. So you can effortlessly add 500 calories of oil to 500 calories of vegetables. 500 calories of vegetables, fruits and veggies, the lowest calorie dense foods on the planet. You have to eat a massive volume in order to overeat calories, and most people just couldn't do that. Right, this is 500 calories, and you probably actually need to eat more than a full stomach worth to get 500 calories, to be honest. But you could effortlessly pour that oil in, and you wouldn't feel any difference in satiety, and yet you would have doubled the calories. You can see cheese and meat here, both very high in fat. By the way, oil obviously is pure fat. It's got nothing else, a few micronutrients, but it is pretty much, in terms of the macronutrients, it's pure fat. It's 9 calories per, fat is 9 calories per gram, so it's very calorie dense. So here we have cheese and meat, both of which are high in fat as well. Both are very calorie dense, and so 500 calories of both don't go a long way. You would not be satisfied on 500 calories of cheese. You might feel sick. You might be going, why did I do that? I don't feel good. Right? But you wouldn't be eating just cheese. You'd be eating to fill that belly. Same with meat. Yeah, 500 calories would not fill you up. Whereas you get to potatoes, beans and rice, 500 calories is almost filling you up here. In fact, that would probably still leave you nicely satisfied there. And 500 calories of fruits and veggies is probably going to overstuff you too much. So let's look at this calorie density chart here. You've probably seen a version of this before as well. And calorie density is like a spectrum. It's like a sliding scale. And so some foods contain a lot of calories per pound, and some of them contain very few calories per pound. You can see down here on the left-hand side, non-starchy vegetables are the lowest calorie dense foods on the planet. They are anywhere from, actually I think some lettuces are around 70 something calories per pound. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's something ridiculously low. It's under 100. But most veggies sit somewhere around the 100-150 calories per pound, which is super, super light. And the reason for that is that vegetables are mostly water and fiber. Okay, they have low amounts of macronutrients, carbohydrate, protein, and fat. Very low numbers. They are mostly water and fiber. So when you eat vegetables, you are eating lots of fiber and water with micronutrients. They are also the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet, which we'll talk about in a moment. And then at the other end of the spectrum, you have something like oil that has very little micronutrients. It has been stripped of its fiber, it's been stripped of its protein, it's been stripped of its carbohydrate. It is pure fat. It is the most calorie-dense food on the planet. And then we have a spectrum of all of these other foods in between. So just if you can't see the slide properly, by the way, if you've got my weight loss guide, this chart is actually in there. So if you would like my guide, just drop weight loss guide into the chat, and I'll get that to you. So next, on the low end of the calorie density spectrum is fruit. That's around about 200 to 300 calories per pound. Excuse me, I'm gathering sweat on my face, on my upper lip. It's going to be a warm day here, and it's not even midday yet. So fruit is 200 to 300 calories per pound. Again, it's very high in water and fiber content, but it is a little higher in carbohydrate. Then we have potatoes and starchy vegetables here, which are around 400 calories per pound. Now, people villainize potatoes and say that they're bad for fat loss. No, actually, they are amazing. And they are actually the food that is the highest on the satiety index too. So they will keep you the most satisfied for long periods of time. So if you want to eat less food, eat a lot of potatoes and a lot of vegetables. So potatoes are around 400 calories per pound. Whole grains are around 500 calories per pound. Legumes, beans, peas, chickpeas, lentils, split peas, and then tofu on average. Both of them around 600 calories per pound. Tofu is in a range actually because it is it's a minimally processed food, and there is a spectrum within tofu as well, depending on how soft or firm it is. The softer it is, the lower the calorie density because it has more water. The firmer it is, the less water it has, so the calorie density goes up. But it's around about 600 on average. And pasta here at about 600 calories per pound. Again, people are afraid of pasta for fat loss, but actually it's a good fat loss food. Then we have foods that creep up in calorie density. As we creep up above this 600 calories per pound mark, there are a couple of things happening. One, the fat content starts to increase. Okay, that could be one reason. It's that the food is increasing in calorie density. So one is the fat is increasing. Two, the water might be decreasing. So some of the dried foods in here, like dried fruits, dates, foods like that, or breads, flours, they have had the water sucked out of them. And so the more the water is removed from a food, the higher the calorie density goes. The popcorn's up here. Even air fried popcorn, 1800 calories per pound. Right, it is a calorie dense snack. Crackers, 1800 calories per pound. Foods that are high in fat, I'll address that in a moment. So yes, as you've got through here, you've got avocado, eggs, meats and meat alternatives. They start to increase in the fat content, so their calories per pound increase. You've got cheese up here at 1700 calories per pound. You've got nuts and seeds, very, very calorie dense, around 2800 calories per pound. Chocolate and chips, 3000 calories per pound. Butter and margarines, 3,200 calories per pound. So you can see that the more the fat concentration in a food, the higher up the calorie density chart it goes. So one, fat content is increasing. Two, water is reducing. Three, the other one is fiber. Fiber is either reducing or being removed. So here in the case of eggs and meat, they have no water, they have no fiber, but they do have fat. So that's why they're increasing in calorie density. What else have we got here? What examples? Cheese. Cheese is another example of that. Same with butter, right? They don't have fiber, they don't have water, and they have they're high in fat, low in fiber or no fiber, and either low or no water. So all of these three things affect where these foods sit on the calorie density. All right. So the goal here, the goal is that we want to eat foods that primarily sit in the range of 600 calories per pound or less. Okay, so the research that Dr. Barbara Rolls in her volumetrics book, she'll talk about that. What she talks about is the research shows that when people consume mostly foods mostly under that 600 calories per pound mark, it makes fat loss significantly easier. Right? These foods that we're eating down here, because they're so high in fiber and water, which really water doesn't have calories, fiber has very little. These foods allow people to eat big, satisfying portions while naturally reducing that calorie intake. And by doing this, you don't have to count, you don't have to measure, you don't have to restrict yourself, you don't have to go hungry. These foods allow you to eat more volume of food with fewer calories. And this creates a calorie deficit naturally, not through force, not through counting, not through lowering your portion sizes. Because these foods are so high in fiber and water. The bulk of them, the fiber in the water takes up space in your stomach with no calories. We'll talk about that in a moment. Now, the beauty about eating these foods that are below the 600 calories per pound mark, look at them. They all happen to be plants, don't they? They all happen to be whole, intact plants. And if you know Dr. Joel Fuhrman, you'll probably know his Andy score. And this is his Andy score. You may not be able to see it very well on the screen, but don't worry, I'll talk you through it. And I think there might be a reference to this in my fat loss guide. I'm sorry if I can't quite recall if it's in there. But the beauty about eating these whole plants, sticking to these foods that are 600 calories per pound or below, is that they are incredibly nutrient dense too. So ANDI stands for Aggregate Nutrient Density Index. So measuring the average nutrients per calorie. There is a formula that he uses. I can't quite remember what it is, but needless to say that all of these foods here on the left-hand side, the ones that are extremely high in nutrient density, oh, they're all plants. Most of the foods here in the middle are also whole plants. It's only when we start to get to the lower nutrient dense foods over here that we start to come into animal foods and the processed foods. There are still a couple of plant foods in there, like white potatoes, bananas, cashews, walnuts, grapes, for example. That just means it doesn't mean anything necessarily about them, but what we're saying is that the nutrients per calorie are pretty low. Okay, so this is a great way. You don't have to necessarily follow this unless you are trying to reverse some sort of disease. You might want to focus more on the foods on the left. But this is all just to say that when you are eating in alignment with this calorie density chart, you're also delivering your body top quality nutrition. So there is nothing to be afraid of. You're not going to lose out on nutrition when you're eating the most calorie dense foods on the planet. Okay. Now, where are we going to next? Okay, so I want to talk about fiber and water next. So we talked about fiber and water being the reason that many of those foods are in the 600 calories per pound mark are low on the calorie density scale, because they're full of fiber and water. So fiber is one of the most powerful fat loss nutrients that we have. It only exists in plant foods. It is like the skeleton. We have a skeleton. Plants have fiber. That's what gives the plant its structure. And when we eat the fiber, it binds with the water that is actually inside the cells of the plant, not the water that we drink separately. It's the water that's inside the plant, cells of the plant. In that digestive process, that fiber and that water actually bind together in your digestive tract and form this gel-like substance known as bulk. And this bulk, it actually physically fills space in your stomach, and that is what helps to activate those stretch receptors. So you've got this calorie-less gel filling up space, taking up space in your stomach, which helps to lower the calories going into your body. And though activating those stretch receptors, it then triggers those satiety hormones like GLP-1 and leptin. And of course, this GLP-1, this is the same hormone that's being taken by people who are taking weight loss drugs. So we can actually get this effect naturally when we're eating a high fiber diet. Now, fiber is also amazing because it slows your digestion. It's such a complex structure that it takes time for your digestion to break into that fibrous compounds and break everything apart. So it slows down the digestion process, and it helps you to stay fuller for longer, which is beautiful. Like we want to feel satisfied for longer. We don't want to have to keep eating. Research shows that when we're eating a high fiber diet, what it does is it not just keeping us satisfied for hours, but it actually helps to reduce calories at subsequent meals. So not just the current meal that you're eating, but actually future meals as well. And another beauty is that fiber actually reduces the calories that you absorb. So it's not about the calories that you eat. Even if you are tracking your calories, when you're eating a whole foods plant-based diet, when you're focusing on those foods that are under 600 calories per pound, you will naturally lose about 10% of the calories that you consume, because that fiber will trap around 10% of those calories and take them straight through the digestive system. So this then further reduces the calories into your body and further supports fat loss. All right, so this is why I think fiber is actually one of the reasons fiber is one of the most underrated, under talked about, important nutrients in our health and in fat loss. We keep hearing about protein being the most important nutrient for fat loss because it helps you to feel fuller for longer, and it increases the thermic effect of food. However, the studies that have been done on protein satiety are largely observational studies. So people report feeling more satisfied after eating protein-rich foods. Well, I wonder what they were trying to eat beforehand. I'm just wondering what they were eating. Were they just eating a salad and then they added a piece of meat to it? Well, of course, if you're going to add a calorie-dense piece of food to a salad, it's more weight of food. Think about how light lettuce is. Think about how light some vegetables are. They're not going to help you feel very weighed down, whereas when you add a piece of protein, i.e. meat, that's usually what people are referring to, of course it's going to leave you feeling heavier. You've just had more weight of food, so of course they're going to feel more satisfied after adding that. But these reports are anecdotal, and when people were actually followed, what happened is that eating that protein didn't actually reduce subsequent calorie intake. But when people were eating a high fibre diet, when they were adding more fibre to their meals, they did. It kept them fuller for longer, and it stopped them overeating calories at the next meal. Okay, this is why eating whole plants is so powerful. Eating a high fibre diet is so powerful, and it's why we want to focus on plant proteins that come with fibre as well. Not sourcing proteins necessarily that don't have fiber. The only time I would suggest that you need protein powders or foam meats or seitan or something like that is if you are specifically bodybuilding or you are an athlete and you need a higher level of protein, but you want to stay within a calorie range, and eating more protein that comes with more fiber just may not fit in your stomach. So that is the time that you want to think about that. If you're just normally working out, you're an average person working out, you're doing strength training, all that sort of stuff, coming back to focusing on plant proteins that have fiber attached is more important if you're wanting to get into that calorie deficit range. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is walk. Does anyone have any questions, by the way? I see Christy's laughing at my 500 calories of cheese. Yeah, you probably feel pretty sick after that. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is talk to you about plate building. How do we build a plate that is fairly effortless for fat loss? So, as I said previously, most people eat, the studies have shown that most of us eat around about the same calories of food, the same weight of food every single day. So say you're a human who eats about 4 pounds of food every day. I'm going to pull it out and say maybe 1 pound of food for breakfast and maybe 1.5 for lunch and dinner. I'm just trying to do this for math's sake. I'm not telling you that's what you need to have, by the way. I'm just doing this for math's sake. So the maths. So the maths is mathing, if you get what I mean. Okay. So there you go. So that's an example. So I'm going to take you through. So say you are eating whole foods, plant-based at the moment, and you're not losing weight. You don't know why. So I'm going to take you through this example. Now, this is a picture that Canva created for me. I did ask it to give me a picture without cheese on the top. I wanted a vegan tomato pasta without cheese, and it gave me one with cheese. So we're just going to ignore that vegan cheese for a moment. We're going to ignore that. We're going to look at what other foods are on the plate. So imagine this is your lunch or your dinner, and if you're eating 1.5 pounds of food, I've kind of done a bit of a guesstimate here that it might be 600, it might be about a pound of pasta, which is about 600 calories, because pasta is 600 calories per pound, and then the tomatoes might be a half a pound. But I'm talking concentrated tomatoes. Like you might be putting in 2 pounds of tomatoes to then concentrate it down, so that overall you've got less. Or sorry, you might be putting in a pound of tomatoes, and you might concentrate it down so you've got a nice, generous, thick tomato sauce, because that's what I do. And as you concentrate something down and you remove the water, you are increasing the calorie density. So concentrated tomatoes are around about 300 calories per pound. So I'm just pulling these numbers out of the air to try and make it somewhat look somewhat normal for you, more realistic. So I estimated that this meal, without all the cheese on the top, without any other veggies in there, without any garlic or onions or basil or anything like that, we're just looking at tomatoes and pasta, that might be around 700 calories on the plate right there. Okay, 750 calories on the plate. If we shift this up a gear and we make that starchy portion of the plate half of the plate, and we make the other half of the plate vegetables, we significantly lower the calories on the plate. We're keeping the volume of the food high. And by the way, I did ask Canva AI to keep exactly the same picture, but do it with broccoli on the other side. It didn't do it for me. It gave me something different. Whoops. Sorry, that's just gone and increased in size. We don't want that. So it's given me this picture, but this demonstrates what I'm trying to get at here. So instead of having a whole pound of pasta, we've got half a pound of pasta. Instead of having half a pound of tomatoes, we've got about 0.25. We've got a quarter. And then we've got, so there's together there, they are 3/4 of a pound of food together on the pasta side, and then we've got 3/4 of a pound of broccoli on the other side. So that's probably around 100 calories. So we've taken that meal from being around 750 calories to now being 475 calories. Okay, do you get what I'm talking about here? This is the power of building your plate effectively for fat loss. So while there's nothing wrong with wholemeal pasta, if you're doing a wholemeal version, and tomatoes, absolutely 100% awesome. They're still under the 600 calories per pound. When you focus on a plate that is 50% vegetables, now you're getting into a fat loss zone. Okay? And I want to demonstrate what happens when we take that exact same meal from back here and we start adding fatty foods to it. Imagine that you cooked that meal with oil, right? So remember, oil here is at 4,000 calories per pound. The most calorie dense food on the planet, 100% fat. You add a tablespoon of oil to that. Maybe you added a bit of oil to saute a little bit of garlic to start with. And then you added the tomatoes, and then you loosened up that tomato sauce with a little bit more oil because it was looking a little dry. Add a little bit of oil to it to loosen it up and get it all glossy. And then you put the pasta in there and you put it on the plate, and then you drizzle some more olive oil over the top, just like Jamie Oliver does. Boom! Suddenly you've got an extremely calorie dense meal. It is so easy to add a whole tablespoon of fat to that meal and have it not change the volume of food at all. All it's doing is changing how the food maybe tastes slightly. It's changing how it looks. It's looking more glossy. But you've just added another 120 calories, and that does nothing to your stretch receptors. So this is why understanding plate building is extremely important for fat loss. So let me talk you through the method that I teach my clients. And I call this my plant-powered plate, and we use an acronym called PLANTS. I like to make things simple, okay? Let's walk you through it. The P, you can remember this easily, like we all eat plants. Let's look at this. So the P is potatoes or other starch foods like whole grains. They will be around about quarter of the plate. L is for your protein-rich legumes, around about quarter of the plate. But together, these two on the starchy side, they will make up at least half of your plate. The A is for amping up the flavor with things like herbs and spices and condiments. That could be also sauces or dressings. We have to like the food that we're going to eat. There's no point making something that is perfect that you don't want to eat, that you don't want to eat consistently. So I encourage you to amp up the flavor. And even if that means a little bit of salt, a little bit of sugar, or something like maple syrup, all right, just for, for flavor enhancement. If you are trying to reverse disease of some sort, those sorts of things you may need to pay more attention to. I get, okay? I'm just talking about fat loss in this instant. I want you to do something that is consistent for a long period of time. So making sure that your food is flavorful and that you enjoy it is so, so, so important for consistency in the long run. Then we move to N, which is your non-starchy vegetables and or fruit. So if you're having oats for breakfast, you would have half a plate of oats, which is your grain, and then you might have half a bowl of fruit as well. So it's the non-starchy vegetables or fruit that significantly lower the calories on your plate without you needing to lower the volume. T is a tiny bit of fat. So if you're eating something like nuts or seeds, or a dressing made from nuts or seeds, that would be around about 1 tablespoon per meal, or around 1/4 of an avocado per meal. Now, that avocado or that tablespoon of fat can also be part of the condiment or the dressing or the sauce that you are using as well, right? It wouldn't appear to us. You wouldn't have like a say a satay or a tahini based dressing and then avocado on the top, right? It would be one on the, like if your sauce, your condiment, your dressing includes the fat, then it includes the fat there, okay? So just so that you're clear, we don't want too much fat on the meal, because that inadvertently pushes those calories up and closes that calorie deficit window. I think that's where a lot of people go wrong too. And then we move to S. S, sit down, slow down, and savor your creation until you feel comfortably satisfied. And this is really important too. So many of us are racing through our meals. We're eating distracted. We're not paying attention to our fullness cues. I want you to actually take a break. I saw Reva was watching a moment ago. Reva discovered the power of slowing down and taking a break and breathing, calming that nervous system before you eat. She was able to find her fullness factor, fullness in her body, that comfortably satiated point in her body on less food. She's like, oh my goodness, I was rushing through my food so much that I didn't even notice that I was full. I was just finishing what I had, and then I was feeling uncomfortable afterwards. So when you find that comfortably satisfied place, you're more likely to be in that calorie deficit zone. And how this looks on a plate. This is one of my plates, my plant-powered plate. This is my sushi bowl. This is how I try to build most of my meals. I hate that word try. This is how I build most of my meals. I will have half a plate of vegetables. So you probably can't see them too well under here, but I've got a heap of steamed broccoli in here. I've got some raw cucumber, I've got some grated carrot, and I've got a bit of pre-cooked beetroot that I bought from the supermarket. You get those blister packs of pre-steamed beetroot. I just find that easier, less mess, and I cut up some of that, really easy. And that is actually in here. It's actually more than half of this bowl. The other half of the bowl is some brown rice that you'll see down the bottom here. So that's my grain, my starch. And then up here is marinated tofu. And I've also got a few edamame beans in there as well. And so the flavor then, the amping up of the flavor came from the drizzle of tamari that I put over the top, and this bit of pickled ginger on the top, and then the tea, the tiny bit of fat, was a quarter of an avocado that I cut up into pieces and sprinkled over the top. And so that is how I like to build my meals. That keeps me nicely satisfied, and yet virtually it keeps me out of overeating. It's so low in calories that I know that I'm not going to be overeating. I can just trust that I'm going to be staying within that healthy calorie range that supports my goals. If you have any questions, please answer me. Please ask right now. So this is why eating whole foods, plant-based, is so powerful for fat loss. We are naturally removing many of the foods that are high in calorie density. Okay? The foods that are more predictable, that get you more predictably into that calorie deficit zone, are whole plants, right? So we can trust, plus they are extremely nutrient rich. They are high in fiber, they're high in micronutrients, they're high in water. And this combination supports satiety. It allows you to eat generous portions of food, feel comfortably satisfied, and reduce those calories naturally, get you more predictably into that calorie deficit zone. Okay, and we do it in a non-restrictive way. But plate building is also important. Making sure that you are filling half of that plate with vegetables, because if you are just focused on your starch foods, which are incredibly important for fullness factor and feeling satisfied for long periods of time, but if you're only focused on those starchy based foods, you may inadvertently still be eating too many calories, or you might be eating enough calories to support your current weight but not get you predictably into that fat loss zone. Right, so in plate building for fat loss, we want to make sure that your plate is 50% vegetables. In fact, this was something I taught on the last 5-day workshop that I ran just recently, the next 5 pounds down. And after a week, I had people saying, oh my goodness, I am 4 pounds down already. So this can have a significant effect on your body immediately if you're not doing this already. So that's a great place to start. Okay. Excuse me. So I'm just going to stop sharing for a moment. So fat loss becomes far less difficult. Fat loss becomes more difficult when you're trying to eat less volume or weight of food. But fat loss becomes easier when you're able to keep your portions generous, but you're eating the foods that fall below that 600 calorie per pound mark, and you're following that basic 50-50 plate building method. Okay, so these foods activate satiety. They're going to activate those stretch receptors and those fullness hormones that'll send signals to your body so that cravings and hunger will go away, but you'll naturally be able to stay in that calorie deficit zone. These foods are also nutritionally dense. So these are the foods that help your body feel nourished, feel taken care of. And then when your body feels like that, it's like, okay, now I feel safe to tap into these fat reserves over here. I don't have to keep sending her hunger signals to go eat more food, eat more food, eat more food. No, we'll just tap into these into the fat reserve over here. We can do that. We're getting everything that we need nutritionally and satisfaction wise from our food, so we can dip into those savings account easily. So when you eat this way, you're not fighting through hunger and cravings, which we are not biologically designed to do. Like people, we're not designed to move through hunger. You want to feel satisfied, and this is how fat loss can start to become easier. We're actually working with the body, with our biology, instead of against it. So I hope this has helped you. If this has helped you understand better how to structure your food for fat loss predictably, without needing to count, without needing to obsess about anything, I'm happy. Go away and start to make that happen. And then I'm going to bring some more lessons to you as well. So the next lessons in this free series are going to be are going to support this lesson, because knowing what to eat is only one part of the fat loss equation. In the next lessons that are going to come up, we're going to look at following your hunger and fullness cues, making sure you are supporting hunger, but you are not overeating. Okay, so many people have eating behaviors, overeating behaviors, disordered type of eating behaviors. I'm not talking about eating disorders per se. I'm talking about disordered eating, whether it is restriction and then binge. So how do we, start that again. We're going to just look at hunger and fullness, honoring our hunger and fullness cues in the next lesson. We will also look at sleep, hydration, and stress, and how they can directly affect fat loss. All right, so these are things that people often don't consider. Again, in the 5-day challenge I just ran recently, some people weren't drinking enough water and they didn't realize how that was leading inadvertently to overeating. So we will address that too. 3, we're going to look at where does movement and exercise fit into the whole fat loss equation, because I want you focused on the right things, not spinning your wheels, feeling like you are throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping that something sticks. Okay? And then the 4th lesson that we will have is how to stabilize your behavior so that results become consistent. All right? Because information alone doesn't create fat loss. Okay? We have to start making behavioral change, and consistently. We have to start becoming consistency with the changes that we know to make. That is the secret sauce. So in the meantime, if you don't have a copy of my weight loss guide, my plant-based weight loss guide, and if you would like a copy of it, please comment weight loss guide, in the comments, and I'll make sure that I send that to you. That's in handy PDF form. So these lessons are going to just be diving into what is in that weight loss guide, so that you understand this at a deeper level. All right, team. Hi, Lisa. I see you watching. Hi, Lynn. Thanks for joining us. Reva. Anyone else? Great to have you guys here. If you have any questions, please drop them in the comments. Otherwise, we'll finish up today. I know there's a bit of a delay between you and me, what I'm seeing on my screen, and what comes through. All right, it doesn't seem like there's any questions. So, team, thank you so much for being with me here today. Look out for upcoming masterclasses. Oh, Lisa says, I love that you are differentiating weight loss and fat loss. Yeah. Easy to lose weight. You could cut off an arm. You could develop a meth habit. I don't suggest any of those. We want to lose weight in a healthy, consistent, stable way. This is not just about the number on the scale. It's about doing this in a healthy way that protects our health long term. Beautiful, guys. All right, we'll finish up now. Thank you so much for being with me. Look out for next week's lesson. I'll see you next week. Ciao.